Welcome to the tiny kitchen. These bacon pack sliders are perfect for Memorial Day. So stick around today, I'll show you how to make them and give you a quick tip on how to make your party extra fun. Let's get going with our apron and gather all of our ingredients here. We have our ingredients for our slider patties. A couple of these ingredients will need to be pre-cooked, particularly the bacon and the onion, before we mix it all with our beef. So let's get started on doing that. First, we'll take our frying pan, turn our heat on, nice and high. Now you don't have to add any oil or anything in your pan because the bacon will create a lot of fat on its own. So don't add anything to your pan. It's just added calories you really don't need. So let's get our bacon out, and we will put, since we're cooking for a crowd, we'll need quite a little bit more than we would if we were just making a couple patties for us at home. So I would go with probably about 6 to 8 slices of bacon for this recipe. Okay, so while our bacon is sizzling quite nicely, make sure that your heat is not too high so that the grease inside the pan isn't splattering all over the place. Not only will it make a mess that you'll have to clean up later, but it's also quite dangerous. The hot oil really can burn you, and it's quite painful. Trust me, I've had it happen before. So just make sure your heat is down nice enough so that your bacon doesn't burn, number one, and sizzle too much. Okay, so we're going to clean up our onion, take all this paper off, and go ahead and chop it up. So once we've chopped up our onion, let's check on our bacon, and it looks like our pieces are nice and crispy, which is perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a plate and line it with a paper towel and put our bacon on that plate so that it soaks up most of the grease from the bacon. We'll let it sit there until it cools enough so that we can handle it and chop it up for our burgers. Okay, so a big thing about working in our tiny kitchen is we need to do dishes as we go, and it's a good rule of thumb to always remember, whether your kitchen is big or small, is to always try to clean up as much as you can as you go, and you'll have less dishes to do later, and it'll just be a nice clean kitchen, especially since you have people coming over later. So let's take a little break here and start cleaning up some dishes. Okay, so we have cleaned our pan, and what we're going to do is put in a little flavorless oil, just a tiny bit, in our pan so we can start cooking our onions. We'll heat up our fire here. Wait until the pan is nice and hot, so once the onions go in, you hear that sizzling noise right away. Okay, and get that onion pre-cooked. Okay, once we've cleaned up a little bit, we're ready to chop up our bacon. So let's grab our plate here. And now's a good time to get your bowl that you're going to be mixing your patties in. Okay. And we'll take our bacon here and we will start chopping it up. Again, same as the onion in small pieces. You do want to have a good balance of bacon flavor throughout the patty, not just a big piece chunk as you take a bite. So while you're cutting your bacon, make sure you walk over and you check your onions every couple of seconds to make sure that they don't burn. So we'll take a little spoon here too, and we'll mix them up and make sure that they don't fry too quickly or get too burned. So once our bacon is cut up to a pretty decent size here, we're going to just finish doing a little chopping. Okay, we can go ahead and put everything into our bowl. So the bacon is our first ingredient into our bowl today. Okay, and next will be our onions. Okay, so our onions look like they're all done. Some nice brown pieces here, and hot, just right off the stove. We'll mix them in with our bacon here. Make sure we get every last piece. Okay. And we'll let that cool a little bit. And then now we're going to add the rest of our ingredients for our sliders so that we can start mixing. If you want to leave your onions a little bit to cool so that they're not too hot when you start handling the meat and all the other ingredients, that's totally fine. Otherwise, you can go ahead and throw everything in and get started. So we have 3 main key seasonings that we'll need for our sliders, and these specific ingredients really will blend the beef and the bacon and the onion and all the flavors that we're throwing in here really well together. So let me start with the Worcestershire sauce. I know it's a hard word to say sometimes, but I know a lot of you at home might not really like this sauce, but I tell you, even just a couple little splashes, just a little bit of flavor will really, really bring out the deliciousness of beef and all the other ingredients that we're putting in here. So I'm going to add quite a bit, but you can add as much as you'd like. Of course, our staple is our salt and pepper blend. Always season every dish just to bring out the flavors that you already have in here. And then a little secret seasoning that I want to share with you is, this is really the only brand I've used, so not to push any specific brand, but this Lawry's seasoned salt really is delicious on burgers. If you want to make classic burgers at home or just get prepackaged patties, get some of the seasoning salt because it really helps add to the flavor of the beef and really brings out a delicious, juicy burger. So we'll be adding a little teaspoon or so of this into our mix today and really bring out a lot of the other flavors we have going on as well. So let's get started in throwing everything in our bowl here. We're going to start with our beef. Now this is a 93% lean beef, and it's really just ground Angus. So you don't really have to go crazy or get anything expensive or unique. Any kind of beef that you like will do. We'll throw that in there. Now for your Worcestershire sauce, I would add probably about 1/4 cup. I think that's plenty, especially for the amount of ingredients that you have in here. You can add just a couple tablespoons if you want, just to keep the flavor of the sauce light. But I really enjoy this flavoring as well as the moisture that it brings to your meat as well. Okay, and then next we're going to do a couple pinches of our salt and pepper, because your seasoned salt is in fact salt. So if you put too much of your pepper blend, then you will definitely have too salty of a burger. So this, I would go for maybe like a tablespoon. It's good to add at the end of your burger as well. If you're not mixing your own patties, it's great to just sprinkle right on the top while they're on the grill or in your pan, however you're cooking them. So I'm going to put some in the actual patty itself. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use our hands and we're going to start getting dirty. So let's mix this up and make a really delicious patty. So we have assembled all of our ingredients, our seasonings, our meat, everything into this bowl, and this meat is ready to be pattied, cooked, and served. So we're more than halfway through. But this is also a good place for you to stop if you want to package this very tightly in a saran wrap or a Ziploc bag, throw it in the freezer. You'll have burgers ready for when you have guests unexpectedly, or save it for later if you change your plans or something else comes up, and you have burgers on hand, deliciously made and ready to go. Okay, so we're ready to patty up our burgers, and a good rule of thumb to remember is to get the roll that you're going to serve your burger on and use it as a guide to create the size of the patty that you want to serve. So we're going to make them a little bit bigger than what this roll is, because when you cook the actual patty, it will shrink a little bit. So I would say probably for this tiny little slider roll, which is so cute, right? We're going to do probably about 2-inch circumference patties. So let's get started pattying those out. Something to remember is you don't want to make them too high. If you make a really high patty, it's going to take forever to cook because you have to cook through the center of the meat. So you want to make them pretty flat because they will bubble up. And an indentation in the center, a little indentation in the center, because again, they will bubble up as well in the center. So you really want to make sure you have a good size, nice and packed, and a little caved in the center. So when it cooks pretty uniformly. So our patties are all ready. Now would be a good time to cover up your patties with saran wrap and wait until your guests arrive so that they are nice and hot and fresh for when they're here. But we're going to cook a couple right now. So all you need to do is get a little bit bigger of a frying pan. Get your heat going here. And a high temperature would be ideal. You really want to sear the outside. And then once they start cooking a little bit, you reduce your temperature so they can cook on the inside. We'll just use a little bit, again, of our flavorless oil just to coat the bottom of our pan. And wait until this gets a little nice and hot. You really want to make sure that you get them to the right temperature. You like sliders, they are smaller, so they will cook a little bit faster. I really like to have a medium rare, so I won't be cooking them too much. We really want to coat our pan with the oil, and it's starting to sizzle already, so I think we're ready to put a couple of our patties in here. Now you can cook as many at a time as you'd like, however many will fit your pan, however many you think you can handle at any one time. So they're starting to sizzle. Turn it down just a little bit so you don't burn the outside. It's super important to make sure you don't burn the outside of your meat before the inside is even cooked. So if that starts to happen, your heat is too high. Turn it down, okay? Cooking meat can be very challenging, so if you want to use a thermometer, you can always insert a meat thermometer into the center and check the temperature and see what temperature works for you. Let's get our buns ready while the meat finishes to cook. So I got these awesome potato rolls, right? And they're super tiny, so the sliders are going to fit perfectly on these little buns. And what we'll need to do is slice them because they're not pre-sliced for us here. So we'll just take a little serrated knife and slice right through. Careful with your fingers when you're slicing your rolls. You don't want to cut yourself. Now when you're cooking for your crowd, a fun idea is to create a do-it-yourself bar. And you can put your sliders out on just sort of a plate, or if you have a chafing dish at home and you want to keep them warm, you can definitely put them in there and have your rolls off to the side all cut and ready to eat. And then use a bunch of different plates and a bunch of different serving dishes to place your tomato and your lettuce and your ketchup and a bunch of other fun condiments that you want to add, barbecue sauce, raw onions, sautéed mushrooms, and different things that you want to add to your slider bar. And everyone can make their own, and it's just so much more fun and just a fun little social event to do for your next party. So that's a fun idea you can do with these sliders. Serve the rest in a minute. I'm actually going to be doing the slider bar, so I'm going to have everything out on a platter and sort of ready for everyone to sort of make their own little slider because it's way fun. Okay, and here we go. Here are 4 of the mini sliders that we have ready, and what a perfect little party snack, great food to make for guests. And if you decide to freeze the meat ahead of time, like we talked about earlier, it's definitely a good idea to do, and have these ready to go last minute. It'll seem like you cooked all day long for them. So I really hope you enjoy these, and we'll see you next time. The Tiny Kitchen is moving to the West Coast. Join us on our new series as we come to you straight from San Diego on the French Girl's Guide to Food. We'll be taking a look right outside my window of my brand new kitchen and making trips to the local farmers market every Thursday, picking up some amazing fresh produce and making some amazing new recipes, breakfast, lunch, and dinner that are so easy. Join us coming this summer on the French Girl's Guide to Food.